Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock-steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show. This week's iTunes review is brought to you by M.L. Martel. She writes, 5 stars. Kim is more than just knowledgeable in just health and fitness. She is supportive, reassuring, and on the level. She gives it to you straight, just the way most people need it. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate that review. And you too can review Fit Girl Magic Podcast. Just go to iTunes or wherever you subscribe to this show and just leave me a 5-star review. I love them. I take them to heart. I just want to make sure that I'm bringing you the best stuff. So thank you so much for all of you who have left me a review so far. I can't wait to highlight you. Hey, Magic Makers, it's Kim here. And I just had a great conversation with Ali Dameron, and it was just fire. There were several things that we talked about regarding how do we balance our hormones and how do we know it is our hormones, and is it just reaching for a supplement or are there steps? And she's given multiple frameworks for how to really understand what's going on with our hormones and how do we balance them. And I know many of us might be like, oh, I can't lose the weight. Is it this? Is it that? And this conversation really today helps to kind of break it down, help you to understand what is truly going on and without getting all sciencey, right? We kept it really high level. So have a listen, and I hope that you take something away. Do me a favor. Whatever your takeaway is, screenshot this episode and write down what your one takeaway was from that episode. Enjoy. Hey, Magic Makers. I am here with Ali Dameron, and she is a licensed acupuncturist. And we are going to talk about hormones, and we are going to talk about how do you balance them? How do you know if it is your hormones versus maybe eating a little too much? How do you know what it is? And how do we go about making the changes that we need to make in order to bring that balance that, gosh, we have been seeking for so long. Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I just want to I'm one of those people, I'm like, let's just dive in. Let's grab a rock and dive into the deep end. So how did you come to this work, right? You started out as a personal trainer and then you went to acupuncture school. So were you always interested in acupuncture, or was there something that said, I kind of think that's a way for me to go?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So no, I didn't know what acupuncture was for a lot of years of my life before I actually went. I grew up in Western Nebraska, and holistic health, alternative health, that's just not a thing. I didn't grow up doing any of that. I didn't know anything about it. However, I had several family members that went through a lot of health conditions and, heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, cancers, those types of things. And when, watched them go through the gamut of Western medicine and get treated and all of that stuff. And not that there was anything wrong with that, but I kept in my mind just kind of thinking is this just luck of the draw? I was young. I was in, middle school and high school when all of this happened. And I was like, is this just luck of the draw? Is there something that we could do? Is there some other form of medicine to kind of help complement this? And so I kind of had just on my own started asking these questions. And I went to, long story short, I ended up at Arizona State University for some of my college. And through there, people came from California and it was a bigger city. And so I was exposed a little bit more to this idea of holistic medicine, chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, even like literally none of that was in my world.
Mm.
And so I started to see, different ideas of like maybe using herbs instead of some over-the-counter medications and things like that through roommates and stuff. And so it started to kind of like pique my interest. And I had a friend that was going to go to chiropractic school, and she was like, let's go try acupuncture. And I was pretty open, actually. I was open to all the things. I'm like, okay, sure, let's go try it. And I went to this acupuncturist in college, and I just left there and I had no idea what she did or what she was talking about or anything with diagnosing, because it's way different than what we talk about in Western world. But I just felt different. I felt lighter. I felt happier. I felt energized. I felt different when I left that place. And so I kind of like knew something was to that. And then, I kind of started to dive into it a little bit more. And to be honest with you, I went to a few different acupuncturists, and they were all the healthiest looking people I've ever seen in my life. Like their skin was just glowing, and I can still think of all three of them right now. They just looked so healthy. And, unfortunately, honestly, that was just not something that I was really around very much. And I was like, wow, these people like look healthy. And so, yeah, I started just kind of like taking one step in front of the other. I became a personal trainer. And through that, I also realized that, people were coming to me with issues like high blood pressure and things like that. And I was like, exercise and nutrition is fantastic, but I wanted to know more about how to help them and stuff. And so literally just kind of like the two paths between being a personal trainer and wanting to know more about these people's health conditions they were telling me about, and also this roommate and friends and stuff, and just kind of exposing myself to alternative medicine just kind of led me into there. And I graduated college in the intention of becoming going into corporate wellness. That's where I did a lot of my internships and those types of things. And it happened right as the market crashed. And so unfortunately, those jobs really were just no more. At that time in life, I started getting into yoga, and then I started seeing these other acupuncturists and stuff. And so I just was like, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I did know that since I was a kid. And that just, it kind of just like led me there.
Now, it's funny how when you become a personal trainer, you think it's, someone comes in and you tell them to do 3 sets of bicep curls and then 10 sets of squats, and that's it.
Yep.
That's what you read in the book. And when you get into the work, you realize like these people are asking you some serious questions. Like they're trying to figure out, their health, between health, family, job, and life.
Yeah.
And it just, I think for many people who are personal trainers, especially if you're curious, it causes you to be like, I need to look under this hood. Like there's more to it than, lifting and lowering weights.
Exactly. And I mean, you're a psychologist at a certain point.
Oh God, yes.
You're like the holistic health professional. You're like, and not that this any of this is like legal, like no one's going out of their scope of practice or anything, but you are just kind of filling like a lot of different hats, and you get to know people so well as a trainer because you're with them, a few times a week usually. And they're telling you like kind of their deepest, darkest secrets most of the time. And so you just start to get to know people and like understand they need more.
Yeah. And, I think, I'm hopeful that the kind of governing bodies of personal trainers start to see that there's more than, lift things up and put things down, that, if things are crap outside of the 4 walls of the gym, it doesn't matter what you do inside the gym.
Totally. And I think a lot of people, kind of like I did with my acupuncturist, a lot of people look at personal trainers and are like, they just have like a healthy life. And, maybe that's a stereotype, and that's not always true, but people get to trust you as a trainer a lot. You spend all that time with them. They think that you're really healthy. They think that you know stuff. And so they do ask you lots of different types of questions that fall under medicine and psychology and fitness and nutrition and all different kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. So I love hearing how people's kind of like, just like everyone, you start out down a path and then like, life throws you a curveball and you grab it and you like grab it with both hands. So
Yeah.
now here you are, you've gone to acupuncture school. Now, what made you start to specialize in hormones? Because just like you, I wasn't, exposed to anything Eastern medicine, right? Like
Mhm.
you didn't hear of that,
Mm-mm.
at all. And then, I know I moved and I lived in New York. So it's like, and you didn't hear of that. And then all of a sudden, like I'm being, I'm in the gym, I'm being exposed to acupuncturists and, all of this stuff. So what made you say, you know what, of all the things that acupuncture can help you with,
Mhm.
what made you, kind of dive down into the hormone realm?
Yeah, so went to school and I left and wanted to start my own practice, and I had every intention of just being a generalist. Like we learn, it's a whole system of medicine, so we learn pain and we learn endocrinology, we learn ENT stuff, we learn psychology, we learn heart, we learn everything. And so, when I was first starting, I was like, yeah, if you have high blood pressure, sure, come in. If you have allergies, sure, come in. If you have back pain, sure, let's treat that. And simultaneously, I was actually pregnant with my first baby.
Ah,
And so I started to get into that world. And after I had him, I am going to be completely frank here. I was like floored at just the act of becoming a mother. Like I was just like, wow, no one told me anything about any of this. No one
nope.
told me, like they tell you that, yeah, you may have a little like baby blues and yeah, babies are kind of needy, don't sleep a lot. Like, sugar, like I felt like just sugar coated it so much. And, so, with my first baby, like I kind of struggled. I was like, wow, this is really demanding. I'm not sleeping. I'm trying to figure out breastfeeding, trying to figure out this like new hormone thing, all of this stuff. And so it just started to, make me wonder how to treat myself first off. And then secondly, I was going to different like moms groups and trying to get help with breastfeeding and all that stuff. And realized just, this is not just me. This is like a universal thing.
Mm.
And so I started, you know, really diving into more like postpartum stuff, and I always liked fertility even in school. And so I was doing that too. And same thing ever. I think everyone can agree on this. In school, you learn the basics, you learn what you need to know to get out, but you don't learn everything. And
Mm.
so in Chinese medicine school, we learned a ton about Chinese medicine and fertility and hormones and postpartum period and menopause and all that stuff. But we didn't learn everything there is to know about like Western hormones, like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And I was like, I really need to like put these two together. And so I just started taking like CEU courses, studying extra certifications, all of that stuff so that I could figure that out for women. Cause I just saw, the women coming into my practice were struggling with hot flashes and periods and night sweats and insomnia and all of that stuff. And I had my own experience with the postpartum period of being so hard. And it just made me realize how demanding
Mm.
life is on women, mothers especially, and how much work we needed to do for them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, all right, let's dive into this. And we kind of started before I press record. So here I am. I'm sitting here and I'm listening. I'm like, oh, girl, wow, you're just like, you're ticking off all the things that I'm feeling. Right. So
Mhm.
let's start with, since my ladies are over 40 and most of them have their babies. So for those of you guys who are a little younger, I apologize. We're diving into the older ladies. So I say, you hit the nail on the head. I've got hot flashes. I'm not sleeping. I'm just putting on weight. How do I know if
Mhm.
it's my hormones or just my lifestyle needs some tweaks?
Okay, so this is such a great question. I love this question. So when we think about hormones, first off, we need to think about it in terms of like a pyramid. And at the very bottom of that pyramid is going to be your hormones, insulin, adrenaline, and cortisol. And insulin is your blood sugar hormone. So when you consume a lot of carbohydrates, your insulin spikes up and then drops really quickly to get that blood sugar out of the bloodstream. And it makes you feel certain symptoms. So usually hunger, energy, cravings are kind of out of whack. Maybe you're starving, you're feeling that hangry feeling. Maybe you're feeling, your energy just drop and plummet all day and kind of eat and you feel better. Maybe you're craving sugar, salt, fat, those types of things. So there's symptoms of that happening throughout the day. But if we want everything to be balanced kind of up the stream, so things like progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, which we hear a lot about in this kind of perimenopause, menopause time, we have to go to the bottom first. And so, looking at insulin, our blood sugar hormone, that plays a lot of roles in nutrition.
Right.
And so that's a huge lifestyle thing. Secondly, we go into cortisol, and cortisol is our stress hormone. Cortisol gets a terrible rap right now.
Oh God,
everyone's like, cortisol, it's high, it's causing me to gain weight, it's terrible. We need cortisol. Cortisol is like life-saving for us. We just need it in the right amount at the right time. And to be honest with you, our lifestyle plays every single bit of a role in how our cortisol acts. So sleep habits, energy habits, insulin, nutrition habits, exercise habits, our mindset. I talk so much about our mindset and how our brain's always listening, and our brain is what tells our adrenal glands, which is what produces the cortisol. Our brain tells, or our brain's always listening to the thoughts that we give it. So if we're constantly, oh my God, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I hate this, especially right now with COVID going on, our life's miserable, I am inadequate, I'm a perfectionist, I'm type A, your body's going to produce more cortisol for that. It's going to be in a higher stress state when your thoughts are thinking things like that. And then the third one is adrenaline, which goes alongside cortisol. Adrenaline is more like our fight or flight response. And if your brain feels like it's in danger from our environment, our thoughts, our personality, whatever it is, it's going to be in fight or flight a lot. So yes, I have like 5 pillars that I use for women when I'm treating hormones. And the first one's mindset, stress management, self-care. So we talk about our thoughts. Like, are you filling yourself with garbage? Are you watching the news all day? Are you scrolling social media all day, feeling terrible about yourself? Are you scaring yourself all day with the thoughts that you're telling yourself, catastrophizing? All of those things play a huge role in how those stress hormones react. The second thing is nutrition. Third is sleep. Fourth is exercise. And then we get into where are some supplements, vitamins, and herbs that can help. Because yes, there are definitely things that can help all of these things. But I found this out the hard way. You can't out-supplement a lifestyle that is not conducive to what you're doing.
All right. Can you say that one more time?
So you can't out-supplement a lifestyle that's not conducive to healthy hormones or healthy body.
All right. If we were not in Rona times and you weren't in Denver, I would be making out with you right now. Because that is fire. I don't know how many times people are like, well, I only have 2 shakes a day. It's how I get in my protein. And they have like a salad. I'm like, okay, so you're not getting any fucking nutrients in your body. No wonder you're tired. I'm tired just hearing what you ate.
Totally. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So we have to, like I said, our mindset and nutrition is just, in my opinion, number 1, number 2. And for some people, they are backwards, whatever. But we have to get those under control to have healthy hormones. We can't just add in hormone replacement therapy or vitamins or whatever and expect things to be magical.
Oh, preach, sister. Oh my God. This is just like, how like you have Allie has a podcast as well, and I'll link it in the show notes. And so, when you bring a guest on, you write down your questions. And then when they say exactly the words that you would say, you're like, oh my God, this is kismet. Right now, I'm in kismet. I absolutely love this. And we started talking about this before. So let me just rewind. I agree. Like she said, supplements are at the top of the pyramid, but you have to work your way there. And I know that when my hormones first went out of whack, I wanted to like do all the things. Like I wanted to clear, scorch, and burn the earth to like get to the finish line as fast as I possibly could.
Mhm.
And with the help of, people like Allie and functional medicine, they're like, look, it's a step by step
Mhm.
process. Slow
Mhm.
your roll. And
Mhm.
we're gonna fix this one problem, and then we're gonna move on and see what that has caused a cascade to. And
Mhm.
if that gets fixed because we fixed one thing, then we don't have to scorch the earth. Where us, crazy ladies, where like I've been, I can't button my pants. You've been in such pain. You're like, I know, like my hot flashes. I could be sitting here talking to you, and all of a sudden I'm like dripping like I came out of out of a spin class, and you're just like, I want that to end. Like it's embarrassing. I get that, and for me, one of these things I had to learn how to take step by step. Like you had to, like, as you said, you have your 5 pillars, and it was like a step by step by step. And some people can skip to step 3 because like maybe your mindset's already there. Maybe, your mindset's rock steady. Maybe your nutrition's there, but now, oh girl, you ain't sleeping. All right, let's talk here. Cause
Yeah.
that could solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, totally.
So now so here's where I want to go back. So we talked about mindset, and I'm huge on mindset just like you. So like what you're saying is that if I'm always telling myself that, insert all the things we tell ourselves,
Mhm.
that could have an impact on how my hormones respond in my body.
Exactly. It has a direct impact on your nervous system. So we always hear about that mind body connection, and it feels elusive and nobody knows really like what the heck it is. It's through your nervous system. So when your brain detects like, hey, you're telling yourself, you're stupid and fat and inadequate and not good enough and all that stuff that we tell ourselves on a daily basis, we have like 16 to 70,000 thoughts per day of like conscious thoughts. And if we're telling ourselves a lot of them that are negative like that, your brain is going to be like, oh shit, there's some bad stuff going on here. Like we feel like there might be a threat coming. We feel endangered. Let's get the adrenaline running. Let's be prepared for this. And you actually have a part in your brain called the amygdala that's job is to stay on high alert. And so when you're filling your brain full of these like crappy thoughts about yourself, or like I said, watching the news all day where they feel like you're going to die, or scrolling social media, like there's all kinds of different kind of like toxic sources of this. But when you're filling your brain with that all day long, your nervous system's going to be on high alert, which is going to throw off your cortisol and adrenaline. And, without going into a huge science lesson, when your cortisol and adrenaline are off, it steals from things like progesterone that makes us feel calm and makes us sleep well and makes our resting metabolic rate higher so we can eat more in that second half of the cycle for our cycling ladies out there. It's an ovarian hormone that is imperative for our mental health, physical health. It makes us feel so good. And when our stress is high, we just don't really have any. It steals it all.
Right. And I've done a whole podcast on stress. And again, I'll link it in the show notes, because I feel like for us women, so many women, and I'm sure you hear this from your clients as well, so many people tell me that like stress is just their life. Like they just can't avoid it. And everything you just said, some of the stress, absolutely, but our bodies are designed for the peaks and valleys of stress. Like, yeah, we have a little stressful period at work, and then it should peter itself out. Versus, if we are always pushing the button of like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that button is going to burn out.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. And the thing is too, stress is different than stressors. So we have stressors like remote learning, boss that sucks, traffic, a marriage, insert whatever else. But that doesn't mean that we have to be living in fight or flight. We can learn a different way to respond to those things that doesn't necessarily like rev our nervous system up. And I teach people that a lot. And if you want a good resource, there's actually a book right now that's out that's called Burnout. And it is such an amazing book. It talks about this stress cycle. It talks about stress versus stressors. It talks about like even just why women are so stressed. It talks about like the patriarchy. It talks about body image. It talks about all of this stuff that's just amazing when you kind of go through it. They lay it out really nicely. And secondly, like you're saying, if you go through tons of stress during your day and for 12 hours a day, you're go, 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 and things are stressful, you have to learn and have the discipline to balance that out in the evening and in the mornings. So you have more hours than, 6 while you're sleeping that are more restful, rejuvenating, restorative. We have to learn how to add that in to balance it out in some way.
Yeah, 100%. Even if I know for me, I've been, it's easy for me to get like, I was a stress ball. I'm a recovering stress ball.
Totally.
And it's now more of awareness. So it comes back to that mindset. Like for me, it was awareness. Like I was a person who always thought like life was always going to be like on 500. Like that's just life. And it was, honestly, I had headaches, I had stomach problems, and it was my doctor who, which is funny, and why she continues to be my doctor, and she's a Western doctor. She was like, Kim, I'm not going to give you any drugs. She literally wrote on a prescription card, buy the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and take yoga. Like that was her saying I needed to calm the fuck down. Like,
good doctor. That's amazing.
That was her nice way of saying that. And like this is when I was 25. So I can only imagine if I didn't have her as a doctor, what I would be like now.
Yeah. My stuff all started at age 25 too.
I was like, I was in corporate. I was like, everything had to be perfect. And, I was like running like 500 miles an hour all the damn time. And now I start to feel my body like rev up and I'm like, woo, woo.
Exactly.
You have to kind of like, it's kind of like, I have to kind of do this scan of like, okay, what's happening? Like, why am I getting so revved up? Is it something that I can control? Is it a perception I have? Is it like, what's really happening? Because as you said, what are your stressors versus, is it you or is it truly something outside of you that's stressing you out?
Totally. I love that. Yeah. And I think that is like such a great journey. And it just does take time, don't you think, to just get the self-awareness? Like it took me so many books, so much meditation, so many just come to Jesus moments of like, okay, I'm anxious as fuck right now. I don't know what to do about this anymore. And just working through it, honestly, and finding new resources. And, now you and I both have been through that. So we have probably cultivated tons of resources between the two of us about this. But yeah, I mean, it really does just take awareness and the willingness, I think, to change your life somewhat.
I think 100% it's willingness and patience, right? Because I get it. I have the patience of a gnat. Like if I decide something, I want it the moment I decide it should happen for me in the next 2 hours, right? Like I think it's like takeout. Like it should happen to me for me in the next 2 hours. And over time, it's like, okay, just because it's not happening right freaking now doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I've had to cultivate that bit of patience. Like I still am like, I just thought about it. Why isn't it here? I still have those thoughts, but now I'm like, okay, deep breaths, they're steps, take the steps and you'll get to the other side.
Yep. Me too. And honestly, running a business has been probably my biggest lesson in that.
Well, of course, like, for those of you who might be aspiring entrepreneurs, of course, like when you first start, you're like, you see all the glam. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to be typing on my laptop in front of the Eiffel Tower. It's going to be awesome. Right. And then meanwhile, you're like, okay, I'm sitting here. I don't know if I've changed my sweatpants in 2 days. And when was the last time I took a shower? Like that is like the reality. And so like when you start to just be like, you know what, I have to detach from those like, aspirational pictures and be like, is that how I want my life? And that's one of the things for this. Like, how do you want your life? For those people who, we're talking about stress and we're going to move on to nutrition next. But like when we talk about stress, it's like, I think many of us bring on stress on ourselves because we get caught up in the game. Right. What it should be, what it should look like, Should my kids always be clean? Should my kitchen never have like shit on the counters? Like, should I have my Christmas tree up, right after Thanksgiving? And, all the things that you see on social media. And should I be making cookies when you're like, I can barely find time to make dinner?
I know. I always say the gap between reality and expectations is where the anxiety lies. And that, for me, that's like 100% true.
Oh my God. I got to write that down. It is, because I feel like many people have, what do I call it? Unspoken expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And so you make these unspoken expectations, and then you arrive somewhere and, in your head, it was supposed to be something. Meanwhile, you never articulated them. So like the person is, if it's with the person or an experience, how is it their fault?
I had that my whole postpartum, that was the whole thing. I had this like picture of what motherhood was going to look like. It didn't look like that. I had this picture of what my husband and I's marriage was going to look like in that time. It didn't look like that. And I didn't tell him. And so, totally. It was a whole disaster.
Yeah. I laugh because my functional doctor, she was pregnant 2 years ago. She had her first baby. And I'm like, oh, hey, how you feeling? And she's like, oh my God. And at this point, she was like 7.5, almost 8 months pregnant. So by then you're like, this baby can come tomorrow. I'm good. Like, you're just like good and pregnant. And she's like, you know what the funny thing is? She goes, here I am, a doctor. I know how you get pregnant. I know exactly what happens from the time the sperm meets the egg. She goes, but I never knew how it would feel. Like, no one writes about how it feels. And she's like, that's the most shocking part. She goes, medically, I know everything that's happening right now. I know. She goes, I don't have to look at the, like, how big is your baby and, what to expect when you're expecting. She's like, I know all that. She goes, but no one told you how it feels.
That is true. I would agree.
And she's like, I just feel like, she goes, the Oompa Loompa, she's like, I just feel like every night someone should just roll me down the street to my house. Like, because waddling sucks. And I'm laughing because it's like, that's true. Like, as a medical doctor, you're like, yeah, she's like, you knew it all. And then you're like, this is life right now.
I know. Absolutely. Yeah.
So what we talked earlier, when we started kind of our pre-talk, we talked about nutrition. And so, I get it. You get it. Many people come to me and they're like, oh, Kim, my hormones, it's just, I'm just packing on the weight. It's totally my hormones that is affecting me. So before we kind of take that leap to, are there steps that you ask your clients to take prior to that?
Yeah. So how I kind of work with clients is in the initial consult that I do with them, it's 50 minutes long, and I ask them every symptom. So we literally go head to toe, and I'm like, okay, how's digestion? How's your period? How's your sleep? How's your hot flashes? Like, how's mood? How's energy, cravings? We go through all of it. And with women, if you have hormonal issues, which we'll chat about the correlation between weight gain and hormonal issues too. But if you have hormonal issues, like, you're going to have a lot of symptoms or several. You're not just going to be like, I just can't lose weight and feel fine outside of that. That's not how they work. And so that's the first thing, because I do get a lot of women that come to me that are frustrated because they've been doing certain programs for a while, and they can't lose weight anymore. Their body's like plateaued or whatever. And they're like, yeah, there's certain programs out there that just are like, if you can't lose weight, it's your hormones. And so they come and they're like, yeah, it must be my hormones because this program's amazing and I just can't lose weight anymore. And I'm like, well, if you, feel great energy wise, you can sleep, your periods are mostly fine. And again, I like to make everyone's period manageable and good and how it's supposed to be and balanced hormones, all of that stuff. But just because you have some cramps doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to lose weight either.
Right.
So that's kind of how I work with them. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to suggest that women are lying, but to be honest with you, I've gone through this a lot in my own life where I have been convinced of certain like hormonal things, and I've had some other symptoms of things, and I'm like, gosh, like after my second baby, I had a really tough time losing weight. It was just really slow, and I was like, it must just be because I'm not sleeping well, and my hormones are off and whatever. And then I got honest with myself, and I was like, no, I'm eating the kids' crust. I'm eating handfuls of this because I'm starving and not feeding myself properly. I go too long and then I'm ravenous. I'm eating bedtime snacks sometimes or whatever. And honestly, I was like, you know what? These things are adding up to a couple hundred calories at least a day. This is my problem. And I stopped, tracked my food, got really honest with myself, and I lost the weight despite having some other hormonal stuff going on.
And it's funny. I love this because that's, one of the things I say to my clients is that they're like, but you had hormone problems. I'm like, my issues went on for 3 solid years. So it was me tracking my food, tracking everything so that when I finally was like, okay, I've done all the things I can do, it's definitely a problem. That's when I was like, I always tell my clients, I'm like, I challenge you for 1 year, even 6 months, to track everything you eat, track your workouts, track your sleep, track your stress to see if one of those 4 might be that red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And like you said before, we all just want to jump to a pill.
Yeah.
To solve all our problems. And, I blame it. I blame you watch TV or I scroll through social media and, there's a pill for this, a pill for that, and a potion for this.
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, I trust me, I would love to, and I'm sure you would too. You'd be like, hey, let me stick a couple of needles in you and you're going to be right as rain. Like you would love for that. But it's like, we have to also control our lifestyle.
Which I think is, so I think 2 things. I think that it can be empowering because I think honestly, it's kind of disempowering to think like, I just can't lose weight. It's out of control because of hormones. Like I felt like that when I thought that with my own self a few years ago. And I see that with my patients all the time. It's just like, I just can't lose weight right now. I just have to settle for this. And
yes,
I don't think that that's very empowering to feel that way. And in fact, I think that in a lot of regards, women feel just disempowered. And I think we need to take a lot of that back, but that's another topic. So yeah, I mean, I do think that. I think a lot of women don't get as much steps in as I think they do. I think that, I know from being 25 and not having kids to now 35 with 2 children and having their kind of junkier food around and their crust and all of that stuff, like that added on 10 pounds to my frame by just that. And the thing is, I felt like I was eating healthy. Like I had never eaten more vegetables. I was focusing on protein. I was focusing in my meals and on the right stuff, but I was just literally adding in a couple hundred calories a day of stuff that I wasn't really being very self-aware about.
Right. And I love that. I love that. So, what we're both trying to say is like, yes, hormone issues are 100% real, but we're also saying before you like make that leap, start to look at the lifestyle so that, I tell my clients that because I don't want them wasting their money, right? I don't want them chasing windmills when it could be, like you said, me having a couple of, licks and bites here and there.
Yeah, totally.
So now, okay, my food's on spot. I'm working out great. I'm still like, putting on the weight. Where does acupuncture come in? So
acupuncture is amazing, you guys. Oh gosh, it's just such a comprehensive like way to treat. And I did a lot of obviously like hormonal, endocrine system, women's health stuff with acupuncture. And acupuncture can help your brain produce the right amount of hormones at the right time so it can help balance everything out. And honestly, kind of like what we were chatting about earlier with the stress piece of things, acupuncture is wonderful at calming down your nervous system, calming down cortisol, making you relax. Like it lights up certain like dopamine receptors in your brain and serotonin receptors. Plus the act of laying there getting acupuncture makes you take a break from your life for a little bit, which is much needed. So that stuff is all super, super helpful. And the way that we diagnose in Chinese medicine is really different than Western medicine. Like we use words like dampness and heat and just things that you'll never hear about in Western medicine at all. So it can help rebalance your whole body. So we look at your tongue and we look at your pulse and we, again, ask you 100 questions about patterns and symptoms and things like that. And we can just put together like such a nice comprehensive treatment for you. And like I said, the first time I got it, it was just, I felt so much different. I felt like I felt the dopamine through my body. Like I didn't know that obviously at that point, like what that was, but I just felt happier and lighter. I treated a ton of anxiety. I treated weight loss with acupuncture. But again, you can't just treat weight loss with acupuncture. You have to get the food right. You have to get the exercise right, get the steps, the stress management, the sleep. You have to get that stuff right too.
Yeah. And I love that because I started doing acupuncture for my hot flashes and it was like a game changer for me. But you're right. It forced me to, for like, I'd say 20 to 30 minutes. I would go like twice a week, like 20 to 30 minutes twice a week to just like sit.
Yeah. And we don't do that ever.
No. And she would like, put the needles in and shut the door. And I would literally sit there for 20 to 30 minutes. And at first, literally, I was like 20 to 30 minutes. That's a long freaking time. And I would literally set a timer. And I would set a timer on my phone because I would be like looking on I'd be like, set the timer on my phone and I'd be looking like, all right, clearly I've been here for a really long time. Oh
yeah. I remember laying there still, even like when I was an acupuncturist, like, I would go see a colleague and we'd trade or whatever and like not having a clock in the room. And I'd be like, oh my God, especially like if you don't do it like if I hadn't done it for a little while and I went back to doing it and it was hard. It's really hard to do that actually.
Yeah. And I would be like look at my phone. I'm like, oh, it's only been 5 minutes. Okay. All right. And I like lay back down. I'm like, okay, only 7 minutes. I'm like, all right, Kim, just chill the fuck out and just lay here.
Yeah, it's challenging.
But it's like, it was, it's part of, something I needed to do. I needed to slow down. And it really did help me with my hot flashes. And so, the one takeaway I would say for a lot of people is that even though acupuncture can help you with everything, instead of chasing everything, decide what would make it a little more tolerable. And for me, my hot flashes were debilitating. Like I just could not stand in front of you and just like melt. I just couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And so I was like, acupuncture really, for me, helped with that. But everything else, I was like, I knew I had to also, really focus in on my food. And like you said, it was the insulin. I ate too much. And when I ate too much, I mean, I ate healthy foods, right? So many of you are probably, many of you I know how to eat. You're eating healthy foods, but maybe you're not letting enough food time go between your food. So that your insulin levels don't even get a shot of coming down because you're just stuffing it full of food and your body just thinks, oh, just turn the faucet on insulin.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like we said before, just so much of this journey, and I think like you and I are both talking about our journeys too, is just, it's about honesty with yourself. I mean, it just like, I have a colleague who's a naturopath. I bitched to him for like a year that I was like, God, why won't this baby weight come off? And he's like, kind of just like ignored me. And then he kind of like, helped me with it for a little bit and was like, well, you get like some B12 shots and stuff. And I was like, okay, I don't think that's going to really help. But he's like, well, maybe you need some liver detox. And then I was like, you know what? Damn it. I know what the problem is. I just don't want to admit it. I know though.
Oh, okay. Oh my God. Woo. That was like, oh my God, today, like you've said, like 3 things that I'm just like, that was like the holy grail. Like, the movie Pulp Fiction and how they were chasing around that box, and every time the box was there and it just like glowed, but you never knew it was inside of that box.
Mm-hmm.
That's inside of the box. Honesty with yourself. And none of us wants to call ourselves on our shit.
We don't. It feels easier. I was telling myself that when I was eating, like grazing around all day, that I couldn't stop. I was like, this is just so hard. My kids have like this food around that I want. I just can't stop this until, I don't know, like you probably experience this too, but eventually one day something just clicks for you and you're like, nope, I'm done. Like, we're done.
Yeah. I oh my God, it just was, just did a podcast yesterday and I was talking about it. Like, no one knows, and I know it's horrible to describe it this way, but like it's your rock bottom, right?
Yeah. You're just like, I can't do this anymore.
And I wish I could tell people when their rock bottom's going to be, but everyone has to find that moment where you're just like, I can't take myself anymore.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm sure you see with your clients too, like, and this is nothing against anybody at all, because we all just have to find this place. But I work with women occasionally who will, I'll be like, okay, we need to try to eat more protein, or we need to do this, excuse after excuse after excuse why they can't, or this isn't going to work. And I'm like, you're just not there yet. And that's okay. You'll get there eventually, I think, but it's okay. We're just not there.
Exactly. And I feel like, cause you grew up in the same kind of diet culture I did, that all of us want, you read the book and you had to do everything starting at chapter 1.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do everything starting at chapter 1, you were doomed. Where now I feel like, the new generation of folks who are helping with this are like, okay, sure. You read the book. What feels easy? Does chapter 15 feel easy? Like, we don't have to start at chapter 1.
Totally. Absolutely.
And the more we do things that feel easy for us, I have plenty of mommies who eat off their kids' plate. I'm like, great. If you're going to eat off your kids' plate, eat that protein. Right. Stop eating the cheese puffs and like focus on like, if they have leftover, chicken nuggets, I would rather eat a chicken nugget than the cheese puff.
Yeah, totally. I love that you said that too, because I'm a big fan of like slow habit change. In my own journey through the diet culture of my early 20s and late teens, it was like this all or nothing thing. And I saw through working with clients and also myself, just failure after failure. Like, my thing was low carb for like a decade.
Yes.
And I was like, just don't eat the carbs. Like, every day, just don't eat the carbs. All you have to do is don't eat the carbs. And now, I think like I didn't like vegetables. I grew up in Western Nebraska. We didn't eat vegetables there. And, so to eat vegetables, like in acupuncture school, they were like, you got to eat like 5 to 7 servings of vegetables a day. And I wasn't even eating one. And I was like, I can't do that. That's like so far from where I'm at right now. And so you just got to start with like one habit and just focus on it, make it a habit. It's not going to be a habit right away because habits are easy. So you just got to start with one thing and then build on it. We can't just flip our lifestyle on its lid all the time, which is why, with my patients, I don't focus on all 5 pillars at once, because that's never going to work.
No, it's never going to work. And, it's maybe out of the 5, 3 are great. So it's great. We're going to focus on the 2. And what if the 2 feels easier, right? Because like most people, like when you give them like affirmations of like, hey, out of the 5, you're doing great. They're like, I am, because most people, beat the tar out of themselves because of the 2 that they're failing at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just one thing at a time, like one focus, because people can handle that right now. You can't, you always hear like the plans of like, okay, we're going to completely do an overhaul here. And it lasts like, I don't know, on a good day, maybe like 3 weeks.
Right. And it starts on Monday. And if you like fail yourself by Wednesday, I'll see you next Monday.
Yeah. It's too hard. We can't maintain that. So it can't be hard.
Yeah, no. And I've given up on hard and, through my journey, like I thought for years, like, just like you were low carb, I thought for years, if I didn't eat 5 meals a day, I was going to die. And that all my muscles would just like wither away and die.
Yeah.
And so it takes courage. Like I had to just be like, all right, I have to trust. I have to trust. I have to trust. I have to trust because I knew, just like we talked about, I hit rock bottom. Like I couldn't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted the 30 pounds to come off and know that once the pounds came off, my hormones would come back in alignment, then that's what I had to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So now I ask so before I do that, where can people find you on the socials?
Yeah, for sure. So Instagram is just my name at Allie Dameron. And then on Facebook, I have, my business page at Allie Dameron too, but I have a free Facebook group that's called Holistic Health with Allie Dameron, where I'm in there all the time. There's a couple thousand women in there asking questions. It's a great group. So that's where I always tell people to come find me on Facebook.
And so now, I'm listening and I'm like, well, I'm not in the Colorado area. Can I work with you remotely, or does it work that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with women from all over. We meet either via Zoom or phone, depending on which one's best for them. And we do all the same things except with the exception of acupuncture, which I'm actually not even doing right now through COVID. I'm currently only doing telehealth. So absolutely.
Perfect. So let's see. And where can people, so I talked about socials. Oh, so here's a question I ask all of my guests. What's one thing that makes you feel magical?
Yeah. So I think when I am in my genius zone in my business, I love to talk to women about honestly their mindset and how huge of a role that plays on their health and their hormones in general. They have an aha moment. Like that is just so amazing to me because it took me so freaking long to understand that and change that. And it's life's work. I always tell everybody, but it makes me feel so happy when people get that, like it clicks for them.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% that, like, especially someone who didn't think it was going to be possible for them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one day it's like, what?
Totally.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It has been really great. I I write things down during my calls, and it's just been multiple aha moments this afternoon.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Awesome. All right, guys. You know where to find Allie. If you have questions for anything, reach out to myself or Allie. And if there's someone who needs to hear this episode, do me a favor, screenshot it, and be sure to tag both of us in that post. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.